Hello, hello, this is Paul from Common Touch of Fantasy, and today we are reviewing a book. It is Fae, the Wild Hunt by Graham Austin King. This is the Riven Weird Saga Book 1. Weird is spelled W-Y-R-D-E. Wired? Yeah, something like that. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, to be honest. I really like this book. I gave it a 4 out of 5. It captures the imagination, and it's written really well, and it's a very mysterious book, and the world building is great. The story is a successful split narrative. The one narrative is about a kingdom called Anlan, and the other split narrative is an island called the Barren Isles. The narrative in Anlan is about a young boy named Devin and his mother who is escaping from an abusive father, and the mother is taken from a mysterious being that they found in the woods, and the boy is left alone. The boy is then found by a man, and it's brought back to his home, where him and his wife ends up adopting the boy that they found. Devin, the boy, becomes a part of this small community, this small village, and he has relationships with the other characters in that village. The other split narrative is a guy named Klaus. He's a young guy that lives on the Barren Isles. He's wanting to become a raider. The Barren Isles can't support all the people that's on the island, and these people resort to raiding Anlan for goods, food, and different things. They're basically like Viking raiders, but Graham Austin King is able to make it so that their reasons for doing this make sense, and that you kind of feel sorry for them, that they don't really realize what they're doing. They're not really bad people, they're just people that have to do something out of necessity. And it's such a part of their culture that it's really difficult for them to think of it any other way than them surviving. But then there's a mysterious third group. And this mysterious third group is the Fae. This mysterious third group is what people believed in fairy tales. And when the tales start to come true, regardless if it's the people that live on Anlan or the Barren Isle invaders, no one's really safe. And as these Barren Isle invaders are trying to come in and conquer land on Anlan to survive, this mysterious third group, the Fae, show up. I really enjoyed the Fae split narrative. At first it was kind of jarring, but I really liked it. Klaus, the Viking raider, his split narrative was a little bit more interesting to me, just because his character was more interesting. He had more progression in this book than Devin. Devin's character at times seemed whiny and just like an angsty teenager. At the very beginning of the story really grabs a hold of you emotionally and sucks you right into the world. The world building is great. It really reminds me of the Viking invasions of England back in 1066. And you know how the Vikings came in and they tried to take over the English settlements, because there were just little small towns back then, and they weren't grouped together. And the Vikings were more organized, so they were able to take out a lot of those little small towns and have a foothold on the English Isle. But then there's also the Scottish and Irish Picts from history, and they remind me a lot of the Fae in this book. They're very mysterious. Back then they were pagans. They worshipped the tree gods and things like that, and people thought they had mystical powers, and a lot of that is kind of in this book, where the Fae is this mysterious group, and I don't want to spoil a whole lot, but it's really great. I liked it a lot. the world just has like this like texture to it, like a feel to it. It just seems real. A lot of authors sometimes they'll make this great world building and this awesome magic system, but it just doesn't. There's just not anything to it. But Austen was able to create this world where I actually cared about the world, and I cared about the people living in it. And his descriptions were just amazing because his writing style is very engaging, descriptive, and I really liked it. Some people might think it's a little bit verbose. He uses a lot of words to maybe describe the same thing. So he might not be for everyone. And the split narrative might not be for everyone either. Someone might not like the one narrative, and they might like the other one better, and then when they switch, they might stop reading for a bit, and they're like, oh, I don't like this narrative as much. And then there's also sometimes where the narrative kind of slows down, and it's more focusing on the characters and not really the plot. And it's really a plot-driven story, but he wants to really make the characters central in the story as well. So at times when he's focusing on the characters, it could be a little bit, I don't want to say boring, but it's just a little bit different. It's just not the plot-driven scenes that you see elsewhere in the book. Emotionally, this book impacted me. It made me think a lot about the two different sides and the conflicts between the two. How one was just okay with raiding these people and killing them and taking their goods and stuff. It's funny how their culture just kind of grew up with that, and they just saw that as normal. And it made me think about like our own history in our world, where there was a language barrier or a geographical barrier between countries, and they really didn't understand the other country much, and so, but they still wanted something that those other people had, and so they weren't really concerned about if it was wrong to hurt these people, or wrong to take their things, or wrong to kill them. They just did it because it was what they did, and that's how they survived. And I found that fascinating in this book. I also found the mystery surrounding the Fae really interesting. I don't think this should be called a dark fairy tale. I don't like the idea of it being a fairy tale at all. I think that it should really be viewed as like a separate group, the Fae, along with the other two groups. I think considering it a dark fairy tale is doing the book a lot of injustice, because there's a lot in this book, and it's pretty meaty, and it's a shorter book for a fantasy book, but there's a lot to it. And when people died in this book, it was brutal. I really enjoyed it because it really felt like that person is going to be missed from the world. And sometimes when you're reading a fantasy book and people die, it's just like a side thing. But in this book, when people die, it means something, because it means something to the other characters, it means something to you as a reader, and there are some gruesome deaths in this, but it's not like grimdark. It's like a darker fantasy, but it's not anything that you can't handle. I recommend this book to people that like kind of a slow burn fantasy book. There's not a lot of showy elements. There's not like some guy conjuring a lightning bolt or throwing fireballs, or some guy that has a sword that can kill like 30 people. That's not the book you're going to read if you read this book. Yeah, check this book out. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I liked it a lot. I didn't love it, but I did like it a lot. It's a high 4, guys. A high 4. Alright. Check that out. Self-published author, Graham Austin King. Sequel just came out. I'm going to check that out as well. Thanks for watching. Check out the review from the website below, where I wrote more for more in depth, and subscribe. Thank you.